What is fear? It seems like it can be a number of things. Fear can just be the feeling you get when applying for a new job, but it can also be a tool used for motivation. Although fear can be defined differently, the ways we cope with our fear can be quite relative. My friends and I were tasked with coming up with, in our own opinion, how to face your fears.
There are many good ways and bad ways to facing your fear. One good way is actually facing your fear.
And there are some bad ways to handle your fears, such as ignoring them or bottling them up inside.
When I was younger, I would see this tree in my backyard with my older brother and my neighbors, and I was always too scared to climb it with my fellow peers. And then finally they just one day said, you know what, Gunnar, it's time you climb this tree.
I know for me, the fact that I'm afraid of clowns, and one bad way to talk about clowns is to pretend that they don't exist whatsoever. They do not exist.
So I got up there with my older brother, and I climbed it. I climbed all the tree. I was super proud of myself.
They really do not see this? Nope. We're just gonna turn that off because they do not exist.
Fear can run through your veins. Fear can be written on your face. It can be shown through your emotions. It can be shown through the words you say to other people. You can feel like you don't have a voice, and you can feel like your whole mouth is just closed off, and you have to feel like you're alone. And then it's a bad way to cope with the fact that you won't talk about it, and the fact that you keep it all bottled up inside until it just lets go and you can't do anything else about it.
Another way to manage your fear is by talking it out with someone. This person can be a friend, a parent or guardian, a teacher, or a therapist.
Another good way to face your fears is by using humor. Often, a witty joke or pun is all it takes to derail a fear. This in turn can help you manage your fears, or even face them.
Most importantly, they must be someone that you trust. When you confide in them, it can help to give you a new perspective and take some tension off your chest. Getting a new perspective is good, because it can help you find a safe and reasonable way to face your fear, and maybe you won't be afraid of it anymore.
I, for one, am not a fan of spiders. If someone were to approach me on this topic, I could simply state that I have arachnophobia, and yes, you should look it up on the web. See my point?
Fear can be caused by a lot of things. And personally myself, my biggest fear is the unknown. So in order to confront my fear about the unknown, I like to analyze what I do know. And what I do know is that I have a lot of people that love me and care about me, and what I do know is where I'm going in life, or where I plan to go in life, and all the information that I've gathered from my 18 years of living, and it gets my mind off of things that I don't know. So that helps me confront my fear.
One really bad way of dealing with your fears is to irrationalize your fears and make a mountain out of a molehill. For example, I have this friend, to go and keep his identity safe, we'll call him Noah for now, and Noah is really scared of needles, like super scared, and whenever he goes to like get a shot or it gets like blood drawn or anything like that, it's not needles, it's more of like really big swords, and he just super scares him out more because, you know, needles are small but swords big.
So I know those answers sounded a little lighthearted for such a dark topic, but kind of going off of what Michaela said, sometimes using comedy to face our fears can actually help. Thank you to everyone who was in the video, and thank you for watching.
Arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Nyctophobia, fear of the dark.
Hi, sisters.
Acrophobia, fear of heights. Coulrophobia, fear of clowns. Triskaidekaphobia, fear of the number 13.
What's 6 times 2 plus 1? 12, 13. 13.
Claustrophobia, fear of tight spaces. Phobophobia, fear of fears.
Yeah, this guy knows what's up.
Camelopardalophobia, fear of drafts. Ibophobia, fear of palindromes.
Oh my...
Aquaphobia, fear of bodies of water. Bentophobia, fear of me, Bennett. Somnophobia, fear of falling asleep. Hippopotamustrosis quipedaliophobia, fear of long words. Caligynophobia, fear of attractive women. Androphobia, fear of men. Arachibutterophobia, fear of peanut butter. Autophobia, fear of yourself. Geniophobia, fear of knees.
Oh God.
In an attempt to better understand what fearless means in today's society, we decided to interview the most fearless among us, first responders and those directly impacted by COVID-19. Here is what they had to say on the topic of fearlessness.
Hello.
Hi.
So what is your name and what is your occupation?
Hi, my name is Iman Ali, and I'm an operations associate for the United States Agency for International Development, USAID's Global Health Supply Chain Program.
My name is Taylor, and I work at a church. My current role is the discipleship director, which basically means I help people get connected to church and to each other and to God outside of just Sunday services.
Hello, my name is Dr. Reem Abdallah, and I'm an internal medicine doctor at Orlando Regional Medical Center.
Hey, my name is Wesley Roy, and I am one of the chorus teachers at Timber Creek High School in Orlando.
This is Melissa. I'm currently a first responder in the local sheriff's office. I'm a supervisor there.
Yes, my name is Miriam Clark, and I'm the Executive Director of Elementary School Programs for the Central Florida YMCA.
My name is Alan Johnson, and I'm a site superintendent for Mattamy Homes.
My name is Melissa Smith Garcia, and I'm a registered nurse care manager at the Advent Health East Orlando Emergency Room.
So how has your job changed because of this pandemic?
It's in a total 360 because so much of what we do before was based on in-person interaction because community is so important in the church. But in this time, we've had to really change like everything we do and a completely different like starting place because everything has to be digital.
We have to wear masks at work while we're at work. We have a very strict code of when the homeowners come, they have to notify us, and there can only be 2 homeowners in a home at a time, and we have to pre-screen them to make sure that they have not been exposed to the COVID-19.
Well, prior to the pandemic, my primary responsibility is overseeing about 33 elementary school programs that run out of Orange County Public Schools. As you know, with Orange County closing, that put a stop to our after school and before school programming. So we've pivoted our operations to offer emergency childcare for first responders.
Obviously, our job got more stressful because of this pandemic. Just being in the hospital, infection control was the #1 priority, and trying to decrease the amount of exposure that these patients had with the staff and other patients.
One of our biggest things is we make sure that everybody has the proper personal protective equipment, which means our gloves, masks, hand sanitizer. A couple policies have changed within our agency about how we respond to certain calls for service. Our service standards haven't gone down. We're just more protective and precautious of how we respond to incidences. A lot of calls we rely on the fire department to go in first, where the roles before the pandemic were the opposite.
Things have now turned into mostly emails, mostly paperwork and grades and like written assignments, things like that. We have some video assignments, and we do Zoom lessons and Zoom interactions over video chat and things, but it's not nearly the same. Just having people in a room together creates that wonderful creative energy that you don't get anywhere else, and I sincerely miss that.
How has your perspective on things changed because of the pandemic?
I think one of the things that this whole season has made me realize and remember is how much we need people, how much like just as human beings we crave connection. Like I think about how much the isolation is affecting so many people, how it's affecting, I mean, the way that I do my job. Like we can't really be the church when we're not together, not in the fullest sense. You know, there's just so many people who are struggling with being alone and not seeing people, and it's just like such a powerful reminder that, you know, as human beings, like we need other people and we crave connection so much, and we were made for that. And so I think this time has been really a good like perspective shifter for me, just to remember that we really do need people.
Things can get very stressful during a normal school year. There's a million rehearsals. There's just a million things going on all the time. And oftentimes teachers, students, everybody wants a break every so often. But now it's very interesting that we've all been given kind of a huge break, and the number one thing I keep hearing from everybody is how much they miss school and how much they want to go back. And that's true for me too. And it's just really cool to see what a positive impact school has on so many people that they would miss it so much.
I would say I used to always, think of, yourself. You always think of yourself that you don't want to get sick. You want to be healthy. And you never think that the health of others actually affects your own health. But seriously, in a pandemic, it makes you think that the health of everyone around you and your community and the country that you live in and the world actually is directly affecting you as well. If everyone is sick, you will also need to be quarantined and things like that. So it makes you appreciate a lot of things that we took for granted.
So, what is your definition of fearless?
Fearless is any one of my ER doctors going into work, any one of my ER nurses going into work, any one of my social workers, radiologists, respiratory therapists going into work right now would be fearless. I mean, they've got to think about everything and what's going to happen, but they got to do their job, and that's just what they got to do, and that's fearless.
I'd probably say my definition of fearless is like confidence and courage in the face of unknowns or fears. Like fearlessness isn't necessarily the lack of feeling afraid, it's stepping into a situation regardless of how terrifying it is or how uncertain you feel or how out of your element you are.
My definition of fearless would be to stand for what you believe in, even in the face of adversity. Making sure that if it's something that you feel confident in and you feel that level of conviction, that you go full steam ahead, regardless of what obstacles stand in your way.
So part of me being fearless is I had throat cancer, and because of the throat cancer, I have a lot of issues swallowing. I've lost a bunch of teeth, and I have a hard time eating and maintaining weight. So recently, I had a peg tube installed in my stomach, which allows me to feed myself with formula, and I'm highly, my immune system is very low because of all this, and for me, fearless is because I still have to go to work to make money for my family and be able to support my family And so I go to work every day knowing that maybe somebody I come across could have the virus that they don't even know, and I could end up getting it, and that probably would not be good for me.
Who are some people that inspire you to like continue to be fearless?
The sort of people that I work with, they're really, really amazing. You know, first and foremost, they're experts in their field, but secondly, a lot of them have actually witnessed events like this, sort of at a more smaller national scale, say for example with the Ebola outbreak. And so seeing how fearless they've been and just in general successful has really just taught me like, wow, you know, I've learned so much from them in terms of being fearless, being brave, being optimistic.
And for that, I would say probably anyone who has still continued to work during this pandemic, who's still on the front lines. And the front lines doesn't necessarily mean doctors or nurses. It also means grocery store staff and other businesses that continue to be open, as well as, you know, the janitors at the hospitals, the cooking staff in the hospital. So everyone who's still going about their regular day for work and for work and to help others in the midst of all this fear, that inspires me a lot.
I mean, honestly, so many of the healthcare workers right now in this time are really inspiring to me to see the way that they're like just selflessly giving of themselves every day, putting themselves in the place where they're at risk in so many different ways, and yet they're still showing up and all for the sake of caring for people. Like, I think that that's so inspiring to me, the way that they're pouring themselves out, regardless of all these ways that they could be living in fear.
As high school students, and even just as humans, we oftentimes get caught up in our day-to-day routines. This tunnel vision perspective prevents us from empathizing with those around us. In light of our shared responses to an ongoing pandemic, we felt that the greatest act of fearlessness we could display is allowing this disruption in our usual routine to bring us together rather than tear us apart. In times of uncharted chaos, people worldwide have become connected through a common fear. Together, we can emerge from this historic incident as a stronger collective.
Just the ability to be the black sheep. I feel like as society we always try to fit in.
So I don't think fearlessness exists.
Fear and fearless share the same relationship as hot and cold. Cold is the absence of heat, and fearless is the absence of fear.
I don't care what your definition of fearless is because there's no one definition of the word.
Being fearless and having power goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
Being fearless has less to do about the lack of fear and more about your will to force through this fearful state and sought after the ending notion. Finding this area of uncomfortability is where you find yourself as a person. Stepping outside of your comfort zone and revealing a greater and strengthened part of yourself is where you truly find where your growth is and what kind of person you truly are.
I guess emotions, just in general.
Fearless. When you break it down, it is fearless, which means not to have fear.
Being fearless is being courageous. It's looking in the face of pain and grief and saying, you will not overcome me. It's also looking in the face of other people's fears and saying, you will not overcome me.
Being fearless is going into something knowing you're not going to want to do it and doing it anyways.
What does fearless mean, really? That's the question I grappled with for weeks, and now I think I have my answer. Fearless to me is not to be without fear, because that's unnatural. Fear is what keeps us surviving. Instead, fearlessness is the ability to control that fear and use it to your benefit, not to be controlled by fear. That ability allows us to live, not just survive. Fearlessness essentially is the power to stare into the abyss and keep composure when the abyss stares back.
I think the term fearless is so different for everybody because we're all afraid of different things. We all face that fear different ways. Personally, I believe that being brave is the best way to combat fear.
and therefore you must be brave to be fearless. There's a lot of things going on right now, and I think that facing it head on and facing it together is really the way to combat the fear we all have.
Doing this is quite difficult. I have what is known as anxiety. Such fun. And living with that, you have to be able to understand when you're feeling fear, but not let said fear justify your life. You have to work past all that to be able to do what you need to do to live your best life. Because, honey, you deserve your best life. And recording this video is very awkward for me, because it's me talking to a screen about freaking internal struggles. Like, that is not a thing that I do, nor is it a thing that I'm comfortable doing. So, this assignment is kind of like spooky, and that's fine. Being able to feel fear isn't a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you feel fear and are unable to overcome it. But if you are able to overcome your fear, then you're fearless, even though you're not actually not scared.
This is what I wrote about being fearless. Fearless can have so many definitions, but my definition of fearless is taking a step forward from something you're scared of. The word fear is being afraid. Less means not so much. So fearless means less of being afraid. We are always going to have that voice in our head that's scared to do something, but we push through by breaking the boundaries.
My definition of the word fearless isn't necessarily not being afraid, but rather when you are afraid, you keep going instead of letting it hold you back.
Forced through this fearful state and sought after the ending
Shown
notion. Finding this area of uncomfortability is where you find yourself as a person, stepping outside your comfort zone.
My definition of the word fearless isn't necessarily not being afraid, but rather when you are afraid, you keep going.
And living with that,
It's also